Hi everyone. I've been going over the principle of miracles. There's 50 of them at the beginning of chapter 1 in the text of A Course in Miracles. And today this video is only going to focus on number 13. There's a lot that I have to say about number 13, so it's going to have its own video. So again, this is at the beginning of chapter 1. It's called The Meaning of Miracles. And then it's going to list 50 principles of miracles. So this is number 13. Miracles are both beginnings and endings. And so they alter the temporal order. They are always affirmations of rebirth, which seem to go back, but really go forward. They undo the past in the present and thus release the future. Kind of sounds like a riddle, huh? Okay, let's break it down. Miracles are both beginnings and endings. Well, why is that? Because remember, everything is an illusion. Nothing exists. Nothing is really here. And science has already proven that, okay? This is not some woo-woo idea. Science has proven it. And even if you don't want to go into quantum physics and all of that seems, maybe overwhelming or a little too difficult, although I highly recommend you look up, just even on YouTube, the double slit experiment. They have cute little cartoons and things you can watch to make it really easy so you can understand what quantum physics has learned about our reality, which is that it's not really here and that it's completely dictated by the viewer, by the perceiver. That's where reality is coming from. So, and I was going to say, if you just look at atoms, as I've said in other videos, that's a very simple way to see that nothing's really here. Because what are atoms? Remember, everything's made of atoms. What are they? Mostly entirely empty space with a teeny tiny little bit of protons, neutrons, and electrons. And what are those things? Energy. Protons, neutrons, and electrons are energy. So what is this world made of? Almost entirely empty space with a little bit of energy that is directed by the perceiver, okay? So even science has already very simply told us that the things that this course are telling us are true. They match up, they make sense. So miracles are both beginnings and endings because there is no such thing as this world, okay? So when we practice a miracle, it is when we are remembering that nothing is here except love and God. Those are the only things that are real. So miracles are both beginnings and endings because in the moment that we experience a miracle, which is, wait a minute, none of this is here, and who I am is God's source creation because I am one with God's source creation and I am one with everything and everyone that I see. That is what I really am. So in that moment that I have that miracle, otherwise known as practicing forgiveness, knowing what everything really is and what it's really for, which is simply to remember that we are loved, to remember we are God's source creation. So in that moment, that is a miracle, right? So in that moment, both the beginning and the end are happening because it says right after that, and so they alter the temporal order meaning time, okay? So how do miracles alter the temporal order? Well, there is no temporal order. Temporal order, that's hard to say, is a concept that our ego mind came up with, okay? To separate, to put things in order, to say that we have a past, a present, and a future, right? That's what the third dimension is that we believe that we live in. Okay, it's not just height, width, and depth. It's also past, present, future. That's the construct that we decided to come into as a soul. It's something we agreed to do so that we could learn lessons because we knew it was an environment of constriction and restriction and veils were there to have things be hidden. And so we knew that that was an environment to help us learn. That's why we chose it. So every time we experience a miracle, which alters the temporal order because it tells you in that moment that you are remembering nothing is here. The only thing that exists is God's source creation. I am a part of that. In that moment that you experience that, feel that, know that with every fiber of your being, you are in the now. You are no longer reviewing the past, whether it be pleasant memories of the past or unpleasant memories of the past. You are no longer reviewing that in that moment. And you are no longer worrying about the future and projecting into the future. You are only in the now, knowing the truth of who and what you are, which is God's source creation, which is love. That is the miracle. And in that moment, all time goes away because you are in the now, in that moment, the eternal now, which is the only time that exists. There is no other time except now and now and now, forever. That's all that exists. So next it says, they are always affirmations of rebirth, which seem to go back, but really go forward. Okay, so miracles are affirmations of rebirth, meaning that in the moment that you experience the miracle, which means that you remember, I am not all these things that the world is telling me I am, and the world is not being done to me. Who am I? I am God's source creation. I am a child of God. I am one with God. That's who I am. I am love. That's who I am. In that moment that you remember that, it is a rebirth because you are remembering who you really are. You are rebirthing your true essence in that moment. That's why it's a rebirth. And it says, which seem to go back, but really go forward, right? Because a rebirth, means to do it again. So it seems like you're going back, but you're not. And it says, you seem to go back, but really go forward. Okay. So again, there is no such thing as back and forward. These are all constructs that we came up with, that our ego came up with. But the Course has to speak to us within those constructs because that's what we know. So the Course is speaking to us within the constructs that we made up with our ego mind so that we can understand, but then it's constantly trying to pull us out of that construct and say, well, look at this over here, but look at this other way of seeing the world. Look at this other way of seeing yourself. Look at this other way of understanding everything. But then it has to go back to that construct all the time because that's where we are found. That's the place where we can be spoken to because we think we live in that world. But as it's speaking to us in that world, it's constantly challenging our beliefs of that world and getting us to see things a different way. That's why that's why it has so much in it, so many sentences, so many words, so many paragraphs, because it has to keep repeating these things over and over and over and over again in a way where it's talking about what we think the world is and then helping us see that it's actually something else. It has to keep repeating that over and over and over again in many different ways to get through, so that we can let it seep into our unconscious and let it undo the thoughts and the ideas that we've had all our lives that made us forget who and what we really are. So next it says, they undo the past in the present and thus release the future. Okay, similar to what I was just saying, they undo the past. So miracles undo the past because what is the past to us? It is a memory that we hold that defines who and what we are now, how we see the world now. The past is what defines how we see the world now. That's how our ego experiences it in this world where we believe that there's time. So they undo the past in the present. Why do they do that? Because when you are in the now and you remember who you are and you know that you are God's source creation and you are love, that past that you thought that your ego told you was the story of who you are, that's just gone immediately in that moment. Because you know you are not that ego. You are not a human who is defined by all of these things that we think were done to us in our past. We are not victims of the world we see, but that is often how we interpret it. So that's why our ego holds on to the past. It's constantly replaying the past all the time, so that we are constantly having it reinforced This is who you are. You are the, child of these parents, born in this city, in this state, in this socioeconomic class, in this country, with this language, with these customs, whatever. You can go on and on and on. The ego has decided that that's your identity, and that your entire past of that identity defines who you are today. That's not true. That's true within the illusion. That's true within the world that the ego has decided to present to us. But the Course is teaching us that that's not true. So when we remember who and what we really are in the eternal now, we release the past. The past is gone now, because we're not buying into it anymore. We don't believe it anymore. We know that's not who we really are, and that doesn't define who we really are. So the past is unnecessary. We completely release it in that moment that we remember who we are in the now. And it says, and thus release the future. Okay, they undo the past in the present. I'm going to start again. They undo the past in the present and thus release the future. Why is the future released? Because in our ego mind, we're constantly worrying about the future, planning for the future, thinking about the future. Well, that takes us away from the now. That takes us away from experiencing the fullness of who and what we really are. So when we can release the future, all that stress is taken away. We don't need to worry about all that. We don't need to figure all that out anymore. So when we can live in the now, and we can remember who and what we really are, that the world does not exist. So here is my forgiveness process. This is how I remind myself when I feel that I need reminding that the world is just a dream. I say to myself, I forgive myself, and let's say it's just one other person. I forgive myself and this person for what we have never really done. There is only innocence. We are all innocent. We are all one. And I just take a moment to visualize that person as just light, to visualize myself as just light, to visualize the world as just light, and to remember what's really here. And in that moment, I have practiced forgiveness, because I understand that someone else didn't do something to me, nor am I doing something to someone else. I'm living in the eternal now in that moment. I'm remembering who and what I am, and who and what everything else is, and that we are one, and that we are love. And poof. In that moment, when we can really feel that and identify with that and just sit with that, all time goes away. Nothing else exists. It's just the now. And it's beautiful. And you can feel how eternal it is. You can feel how huge it is. You can feel the magnitude of the now. And that's where true happiness is. And that's where true peace is. And that's where love is found. Another cool trick that I actually learned from the Course is to pay attention to the space in between. We're used to seeing everything as separate. If I just look behind me here, we've got, books and shelves and all sorts of teaching supplies and artwork and surfboards and all sorts of things, okay? So our mind will see those things and think of them all as separate. Oh, I see this here, I see that. They're all the things I just named. One of my favorite exercises to do is to switch that up and say, I'm not going to focus on any of those separate things, and I'm only going to focus on the empty space in between. What's in this empty space in between? It's not empty at all, right? It's filled with the same love, source creation consciousness that's in each one of these separate things that I just named. It's all the same. So it's kind of an exercise of focus for me, where I will sort of do a soft focus around me. Soft focus meaning I'm not focusing in on any separate things. I'm focusing on the empty space around me. And then I feel the light everywhere around me in that space. And it helps me feel the oneness of how everything's connected as opposed to the separateness. So that's a fun little exercise to do. Okay, so the other thing that I wanted to explain about all this, now that I feel that I've broken down that one principle, number 13, to explain what the Course is trying to tell us with that, I want to talk more about time and my understanding of all the things that I've learned so far, of how it works. And this is what feels instinctively true to me. It makes sense with all the things that I've learned. So I'll share it with you. So I thought this was a really cool analogy to explain time. Okay, if you think of, so first of all, there are an infinite number of timelines that we can choose, okay? There are many, many, many different timelines all happening at once. This is where the ideas of, parallel universes and things like that come from, because all time exists all at once, and at the same time, there is no such thing as time. So within the illusion that time exists, all possibilities exist within that illusion of time. And therefore, we have an endless amount of timelines to choose from. How do we choose them? With our energy frequency. Now, everything I'm describing to you right now is all within the realm of illusion, okay? The only thing that really exists is God, source, creation, love. That's it. Nothing else exists other than that. So anytime I'm talking about something that's not just pure God, source, creation, love, it's within the world of illusion, but it's still important because that's where we think we live. And that's where we're trying to figure all of this out. So it's okay to pay attention to that world. You just want to interpret it correctly, the way the Course is teaching us. So if we have these infinite number of timelines, we choose the timeline with our frequency. What is controlling that frequency? How much we are in tune with love, with God, source, creation. The less we're in tune with it, the more, darkness we have, the more we are not at peace, the more we are upset, and the lower our vibrational frequency goes. And we know that like attracts like, right? Like vibrations attract like vibrations. So when we're in a lower frequency, we are now in a lower frequency timeline, and we are experiencing lower frequency things. We're connecting with people where we're having lots of lower frequency experiences. Maybe things aren't working out right. Maybe you're trying to cook a meal, for example, and you mess up somewhere and the whole thing's ruined, or you're missing an ingredient, whatever. Those little things when nothing is going right. It's because we are focusing on the wrong things. We've changed our energy to be discordant and of a lower vibration, and then we attract those same things within our hologram, basically. We're all walking around in our own hologram, our own energetic field that has a vibration to it, a frequency. And what we come in contact with and what we appear to experience is directly dictated by that frequency. What are we going to see? What are we going to feel? What are we going to, experience within our hologram? That's coming from that frequency. So that's how we choose a timeline. And you can choose another timeline like that every moment, every moment, every moment. And this is what the Course is teaching us, that every single moment we have another opportunity to choose again. That's why when we start practicing this Course, the very first step is to keep catching ourselves. I'm in my ego again. I'm not at peace again. I'm projecting again. I'm blaming. I'm judging. I'm, emitting a lower frequency. I'm not in a space of love. Each time we can catch ourselves doing that, it's not about perfection. It's not like every single time you have to turn it around and, suddenly be in this very high vibe of love. No, that's too much pressure on yourself and you're going to fail. And then, we'll just give up because it feels like too much pressure. We don't want to do that. We want to be gentle and kind with ourselves, just like we would with a child. Because our egos are children. They're little tiny babies that have no idea. Sorry, I went a little sip of tea. Who have no idea who and what we really are. And we've been scared by the big boogeyman, the ego, to think, oh no, this world's attacking me. It's going to come get me. It's dangerous. It's scary. So our egos are like little tiny children. And, if we're trying to awaken that God part of ourself, or really start to live from that God self as much as we can all day, every single day, we need to be gentle with ourselves like we would with a child. So it's not about making friends with the ego. It's not about like, oh, my nice little ego. No, no. And we don't want to condemn the ego either. We just want to know that it's nothing, that it doesn't exist and it's not real and it was just a mistake. It was a misthought. So we have all these timelines to choose from. We can change every single moment, every moment. We can choose love instead of fear, love instead of fear, love instead of fear. And every time we do that, we're choosing a higher frequency timeline. This is what the Course refers to as the happy dream. When we practice these principles long enough, we start to experience the world as an illusion each day. We know that it's not real. We know what's actually going on as we continue to practice this. And we continue to practice forgiveness. We continue to release things, and that allows us to go into a higher and higher and higher frequency, closer and closer to the pure essence of love, God, source, creation. We're choosing higher and higher timelines as we do that. And it becomes the happy dream where we live in the world, but not of the world. Okay? We know we're living here in this dream. We know that we have a job to do and things we want to focus on, and that we want to wake up, that we want to go home to our true home that we all miss so dearly. It's that deep, deep calling inside each of us. We desperately want to go home. We desperately want to be loved. We remember what it feels like to be loved unconditionally, and we're all just wandering around this world, most of us hurting because we long for that, because we remember it, because it is our true home, our true reality. And it's not a place that we left. It's not a place that we have to get back to. We just have to remember it. It is who we really are. It's within us. It's not a journey outward. It's a journey inward. It's within us. So, what I was going to say is the cool analogy that I had heard. It's a visual. Okay, so like those old film that would go on a projector and you could see a film strip. So if you think of these different timelines as all these film strips, okay, and there's just an infinity of them because there's endless amount of timelines, but they're all these film strips with stories, okay, characters, settings, things like that. They're all these stories, these different timelines. And so just like with a movie projector, if you have that strip of film and you don't put it in the projector and have a light shining through it, you're not going to see that story, right? It's just going to sit there dormant. Well, that's what all these timelines are like. They're just sitting there dormant. And what makes it come to life? What animates it? Our focus. When our mind focuses on something, that's the light that lights it up. That's like the projector. It shines the light that lights up that timeline, and poof, you're there and you're living that timeline. That's how it happens. So I just thought that was a really cool visual when I heard that example a few years ago. And I really feel it feels true and right to me. So I wanted to share that analogy with you in case it resonates with you as well. So we're always in charge. We can always choose. We can always choose again. We can always choose love. We can always choose again. So our hologram, our frequency, our hologram, that's our own perception, is constantly being dictated by our beliefs. It's our beliefs that create everything. Everything we see, our entire paradigm is created by our beliefs. So that's why the Course is teaching us new beliefs, new things to focus on and believe in. And that will light up that higher film strip, that higher timeline. And then we can live in that place where we're living in the world, but not of the world. And we are experiencing much more peace and love. Let's see. Right, so our souls come here to this earth school to learn lessons. And we choose this illusion to come learn them on purpose because those veils are there so that we, basically it's the old idea of, forget to remember. However, the reason I wanted to bring that up is because that idea of forgetting to remember is still part of the illusion, okay? God never wanted that for us. And God is us. Remember that. It's not someone separate from us. We never wanted that for ourselves. We never wanted to make this mistake, to have a misthought and be trapped in this dream world. This was not our plan. But you know, it was a little whoopsie, just one moment, you know, the tiny mad idea is what the Course refers to, that we thought, I wonder what it would be like to be independent and separate from God. And because we're such powerful creators, poof, in that moment, with our thoughts, we created this dream illusion. And we think that we've been here ever since. Again, there's no such thing as time. So in a moment where we wake up, we're up. There's no such thing as time. It didn't exist. Poof, we're out of the dream. So we come here, our souls come here because they say, oh, I'm going to make contracts with these other souls, and you play that role and I'll play this role and we'll act this out. Because remember, these are these film strips with these stories. We're going to act it out and we agree we're going to come here and we're going to do this for each other, you know, just like a play. You know, and then we do. And it's up to us whether we learn those lessons or not. And that's why we keep repeating. We come back and lifetime after lifetime. And if we don't learn it in this lifetime, we'd have to learn it the next one. And it just goes on and on and on and on. Which it was one of the motivators for me with this course, because I was like, I want out. I don't want to be in this cycle of incarnation. No. I want to go home. I don't want to do this anymore. So for me in the beginning, that was really a huge incentive. It was like, no, this lifetime, I want to go home and become enlightened this lifetime. I don't want to keep coming back here. Although one of the forgiveness lessons I had to learn early on was that I needed to let that go, that was control. That was my ego saying, I'm going to dictate when I'm going to wake up, when I'm going to be enlightened, how many lifetimes I'm going to live. You know, I was just trying to take over and say, I'm the boss. This is what I'm going to do. And I eventually learned that was my ego still trying to control everything, and that I needed to surrender. And I need to not dictate, you know, when I'm going to wake up and how I'm going to wake up or anything like that. Those are ego. That's ego trying to manipulate, you know, the dream. So I had to learn early on to just surrender, and whenever I'm supposed to wake up, I will. And to, you know, basically the watched pot never boils, to just not be focused on that, to be just be focused on love and light, and then it just naturally happens. So the reason I wanted to point that out is because all of that is within the illusion. The soul stuff and coming to learn, and I'll play this role, you play that role. This is all still a dream, all still a play, all still an illusion. But our spirit is real, because that is the part that's coming from God's source creation. So this is my understanding of it. I'm just trying to explain to you the difference for me, how I see the difference between soul and spirit. Now, the Course will use both words. It doesn't use soul a lot, but it does do it sometimes. And again, the Course has to speak to us where we think we're at. So it'll speak to us in our terms of our illusory world, but then it will constantly break out of that and say, okay, we'll look at it from here. So for me, a soul, by definition, is an illusion, because each of us has, you know, our own separate soul, which is separation. Okay. So to me, souls are illusion. But what are all souls? What is everything? Spirit. It's coming from spirit, God's source creation. Now, these are just semantics. The words don't matter. I just want to explain the subtle differences between these things, because it can be very confusing. You can get caught in these levels. You can get caught in, it can be confusing what's real and what's not. So part of one of the gifts that Spirit tells me to tell the world is the difference between these things, because over time I have been able to see a very clear difference. So a soul is a belief that something is separate, that we each have separate souls with separate lessons and separate agendas and separate learning paths. So to me, that is still within the illusion. Spirit refers to the oneness, the one spirit that we all are, God's source creation. So to me, that's the difference between soul and spirit. What did I write here? I made a little list so I didn't forget. Right. So I guess I'll just end on this. So practicing forgiveness, which is the same as miracles, collapses time. That's what that principle number 13 was talking about rearranging the temporal order. temporal, so hard to say for me, temporal order. It collapses time. Why? Okay. So go back to the souls within the illusion and everything. We make these contracts. I'm going to come in. I'm going to learn these things. These are my lessons that I have set up for myself. I mean, really, it's just nature. What is nature? Energy. Energy is always trying to balance itself. So our souls are just trying to balance energy. That's what all this karma stuff is and everything. And we can escape all of it. We don't have to be a slave to any of it. We just need to forgive. And remember, it's all just a dream. So within that dream, our soul thinks that, oh, I got to balance these energies and karma, and I got lessons to learn and things to, balance out and things like that. So it sets up these goals, before we incarnate. Okay, I'm going to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. And then we get here and we don't necessarily, do all those things. Sometimes we don't do any of those things. Just as a side note, there's a really cool book that I read years ago by Dolores Cannon, if any of you have ever heard of her. It's called Between Death and Life. And she is she's passed now, a hypnotherapist, and came up with this really cool, I'll mess up the acronym, QHHT, something like that. Came up with a cool quantum healing hypnosis system that a lot of people have learned and has become quite popular. I don't really have any experience with it. I just read this book. So she was a hypnotherapist and she was doing past life regressions with people, and she discovered by accident one day while doing a regression with someone that she could go with them to the in-between lives, because in the session, the person doing the past life regression died in that lifetime, and then suddenly they were on the other side. So Dolores discovered, like, oh, I can go there? I didn't know. So this book is basically transcripts of sessions that she's doing with clients where she is exiting, ending a lifetime, going through the transition of the death of that previous past life, and spending some time in the in-between life on the other side before they're incarnated to the next. So to me, it was just fascinating listening to all these souls and what their reaction was to, the lifetime they had just left, and then the lifetime coming up, and what they didn't achieve in the last one, and their hopes for the next one. Also, when they didn't achieve, what they felt the challenges were, why they didn't achieve it. And I also saw, it was so interesting and fascinating to me, because I could see, like, on the other side where we have this system where we go and we have the life review, and we learn lessons and make the plan, and next time the whole thing. I could see how all of that was an ego construct. I could see how our egos developed this entire system of earning. You have to earn. You got to learn these lessons. It has to be hard, and you earn points. And the more you learn, and the more you settle your karma and whatever, the closer to God you get. And that's what the whole system on the other side is. Everyone's trying to get closer to God. It's a very complex system, but that's what the ego has done. That's why everything is so complex. You can get complex going all the way out, into the universe, in space, and you can get complex going deep, deep, deep within atoms and quarks and things like that. It's all designed by the ego to be super complex and fascinating, so that you seek and do not find, so that you get lost in the world of fascinating illusion. So just like I was saying to you, I found this book fascinating, but it was still all illusion. But that's okay, because I knew it while I was reading it. And that's part of what I found so fascinating. It was like, wow, look at what the ego does to trick us and to keep us a slave to this system all the time. The reason I brought up the Dolores Cannon book is because it just shows, how we're trapped in thinking we have to earn something. We have to earn our way to God. And no, the Course teaches us that if we simply forgive and we remember the truth and we go back to the now, back to the present, back to love, source, creation of who we really are in that moment, and remember it, we have collapsed time, because we no longer need to learn that lesson. Now, okay, the reason I brought up Dolores Cannon's book is because, remember I said, souls were like, oh, I messed up. I didn't learn it that time. I'm going to incarnate again and, hope to learn it this time. We keep doing that over and over and over again, thinking we need to earn something or get somewhere. And And it's a lie. It's something to keep us trapped and feeling heavy and feeling chained to the illusion and to this physical world. So when we practice forgiveness, when we remember who we really are, we begin to live what's called the happy dream. And we live in the world and not of it. And we can be happy because we can stay in the now, focus on the empty space in between all the separateness, feel the oneness, feel the love, go through whatever forgiveness practice you feel more comfortable with, whatever words, whatever visuals help you to understand that you and everything around you in the entire multiverse is just light. God, source, creation, love, light. That's all that really exists. Bye.